Later we're dealt Jack-9 suited in the small blind. The straddle will be on for every hand from this point forward. If the hijack limps in for 20, it's a good sign when we see that happening at a table because really good players don't typically open limp in cash games. I call for 15 more, the big blind calls, and the under the gun straddle or checks. We're going 4 ways to the flop out of position. It comes 8-6-5 with 2 spades and a heart. We've got a gut shot straight draw, 2 overs, and a backdoor flush draw. I take a stab betting 40. It's a strong play betting into 3 opponents, but it's a board that'll normally connect well with our range. We have a blocker to the nuts, and there are a lot of cards that can help us on future streets if we don't take it down right now. The big blind calls. This is Casey, the player who 11 years ago sent me back to pursue a career in accounting. Under the gun and the hijack fold, it's down to heads up. The turn is the queen of hearts. It's an amazing card that gives us a flush draw and a double gutter because an offsuit 10 will now give us the nuts. There's 160 in the pot. I'm going to continue repping the straight or other strong but vulnerable hands with so many draws out there. I bet 200. It's more than the pot. Casey isn't remotely bothered by our big bet. We can't push him around. He raises to 750. Well, damn. We were looking to take this one down without necessarily having to get there. Casey might have the straight. He could have 2 pair or a set, or he could have some sort of big draw himself. If he does have a hand like ace-4 of spades, I'm 100% certain that we're going to win this pot. About 38% of the time. We've got 4,200 total in our stack. I still don't want to call and have to actually make a hand. With such a strong draw and so much already in the middle, I'm okay taking a massive risk as a semi-bluff.
All in.
A re-raise shove for piles. Casey and I have 2 of the largest stacks at the table. He doesn't snap call, so he doesn't have the nuts, and he doesn't like seeing the jam. He goes into the tank longer than my career as a CPA lasted. Just under a minute later, he folds.
Alright, we got that one too, Casey. We got that one.
Casey has a great attitude and takes it like a champion. I never find out what he folded, but we make a lot of money with only potential. Stack climbs to 5,000. We're up 3,300 with a lot of profit to play with. We want more though. We run cold for a while before picking up King-Jack offsuit and the under the gun straddle. The hijack raises to 50. The button, small blind, and big blind call. I call for 30 more to close the action. We're going 5 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out ace, queen, deuce, rainbow. We just have a gutter. All players check. The turn is the 10 of spades, giving us Broadway. It's even sweeter because there's no flush draw to worry about. It's a rainbow board. The small blind bets 180. The big blind folds. We could raise, but we're in position on the small blind and have a few players behind us that we wouldn't mind seeing a call or raise from. I generally don't trap with straights. I make an exception in this instance with a call because we're going to have the nuts as long as the board doesn't pair on the river. The hijack and button fold. It's down to heads up. The river's the 4 of hearts. It's a total blank. If the opponent was strong enough on the turn to bet into 4 players, he should be strong enough to bet again here. The small blind unexpectedly checks. Very few hands improve on this river, and our hand strength is concealed. I overbet 800 in a spot that should look more suspect than the fact that Ray Lewis doesn't know where his cream-colored suit is. I'll rarely have straights or sets, and there aren't a ton of 2-pair combos that I'll have that I'd be overbetting with. Unfortunately, the small blind was still at the must move when I pulled off the 3-bet jam as a semi-bluff for over 4,000 with Jack-9 suited, because that play would certainly help me get paid off in this situation if he'd seen it. After about a minute and a half, the opponent folds. It was teed up for us. We went for the home run. It doesn't pay off like we hoped. It's still a decent pot with all the money in pre-flop and the bet on the turn. We go on another cold streak for about 2 hours before we pick up 8-7 offsuit in the under the gun straddle. Casey raises to 60 from under the gun +1. He's done really well for himself today, running up a big stack despite us getting the wins in the larger pots that we've played head to head. The small blind calls. We're closing the action. I call for 40 more. 3 of us are still in it. The flop comes 9-9-6 with 2 hearts. We've got an open ender and a backdoor flush draw. The small blind checks. I checked the pre-flop aggressor. He bets 130. The small blind folds. On a paired board, I could make an argument for folding because we could already be drawing slim. If we're up against pocket 10s or 5s, we could lose a lot of money if we improve to a straight. I like to live on the edge, and I call 1 time anyway. The turn is the 10 of spades, giving us 5 in a row. I check to see what the opponent wants to do. He checks back. I doubt he'd do that with a full house. We should have the best hand. The river's the deuce of diamonds. It's a total blank. I love seeing it. Casey has certainly seen me overbet bluff before. I bet 700 to make it look like I'm trying to steal it with a missed heart draw after seeing weakness with a check back from the opponent on the turn. If he has 2 high cards, he won't be calling a bet anyway. I'm just targeting his overpairs that he might have checked back the turn with for pot control and potentially some hands containing 10s that he might have. Casey's in the blender. It's clear that he has something better than a high card hand. Eventually he folds, letting me know that he can always see it on the vlog. I tell him that it's a good fold and I had a straight. He says he's surprised because he had 10-8 of clubs. It's a combination that's theoretically probably a call since he blocks 10-9, 9-8, and 8-7. He does well to get away from it without paying us off. In this one, we're dealt ace-10 offsuit in the under the gun straddle. Casey raises to 60 from under the gun +1. The cutoff calls. He's a viewer named Blake who just got into the main game. He saw me playing hours ago and came over to me at the table to tell me that he's a big fan. I'm glad that we're getting a chance to play together while I kill some time before my dinner reservations with my girlfriend. Small blind calls. I call for 40 more to close the action. We're going 4 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out queen 5-4 with 2 spades and a diamond. We've got nothing except an over and some backdoor draws. We all check. The turn is the king of diamonds, giving us a gut shot straight draw. Everyone checks again. The river is the 6 of diamonds, putting 3 diamonds on the board. We have the blocker to the nuts. Small blind checks. I don't think that we'd be able to win this at showdown with only ace high and 3 opponents to beat. I rep the nuts, betting 230. It's another large sizing, like I've used when we've had really strong hands. Under the gun +1 folds. The cutoff Blake isn't so sure that we've got what we're representing. I get the sense that he wants to make the vlog, so he could be contemplating calling very light. Ultimately he folds. There's no way the small blind has anything after checking 3 times, but he really doesn't believe me. He calls. We turn over the bluff. The opponent wrecks my world with pocket 3s. I get owned. I'm shocked, not thrilled to lose a couple hundred at the end there. I haven't won any significant hands in a while. The stack is going the wrong direction. We've been playing for about 7 hours when we pick up ace-queen offsuit in the big blind. The viewer Blake is on the button and raises to 60. I typically had 3-bet in this spot, but there are a few reasons I don't feel like doing that. One is that I get the sense Blake might go out of his way to bluff me to make the vlog, so if I show up with a hand that he doesn't expect me to have and I make top pair or 2 pair or better, I might be able to make a lot of money from him. Also, I'm not in the mood to play as big of a pot at the moment. I'm getting tired and I definitely want to make sure that we have a 4-figure win so that I can enjoy dinner more. I'm already down about 1,500 from the high point. I just call for 50 more to keep things more manageable. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes queen 8-6 with 2 hearts. We've got a sneaky top. This is the exact situation that I was hoping for against the viewer. I check. He doesn't go with a bluff attempt after all. He just checks back. That's disappointing. He probably doesn't have a flush draw. Maybe he just has ace high. The turn is the ace of hearts, giving us top 2 pair. The flush draw gets there, but I'm really not worried about it after seeing a check back from the opponent on the flop, and since it's the ace of hearts that completes the flush, there are fewer flush combos to be worried about the button having. I check to see a likely bet if he has something like ace king, ace jack, or maybe he'll even do it as a bluff with king jack, whether he has a heart in his hand or not. The button bets 40. It looks pretty weak, like he's got 1 pair just to draw. I raised to 200 for value. I could see it in the opponent's eyes that he wanted to call me light when we were bluffing with ace-10 offsuit, and he told the entire table after the hand that he was best. It seemed like he wanted redemption, and it should appear as if I'm bluffing again here. The button calls. If we get a blank, we'll be set up well to get a lot of value. The river is the 9 of spades, allowing jack-10 to make a straight, which would have been a gutter on the flop and a double gutter on the turn. I'm not worried about that hand improving since the opponent probably would have bet on the flop with it and might have bet more on the turn with a double gutter. We've got the green light to bet big for value. I bet 500, really hoping that the opponent has an ace, potentially ace king with the king of hearts. There's a good chance that he could have king jack or king 10 with 1 heart as well. Even though he checked back the flop and just called our check raise on the turn, he comes out of left field with a raise to 1350 as if the offsuit 9 somehow helped him. This doesn't make any sense. I mentioned earlier that I got the feeling he'd try to make the vlog. Against viewers, I normally have to bluff less and call lighter, particularly when the story doesn't add up. King jack and king 10 with 1 heart is the perfect candidate to turn into a bluff on the river. I call, expecting to win. Blake owns my soul, getting maximum value out of me with queen 9 of hearts. He got the perfect turn card to win a huge pot from me. He probably would have called a 3-bet from me pre-flop and might have won even more money if we went the more aggressive route, but I'm still annoyed because after being up a couple thousand for almost the entire session, I lose big at the end to barely be up at all. If this turned into a losing session, I'd be on mega tilt. I'm happy for the viewer to win big and have a positive memory that'll be documented on YouTube forever, but I'm also annoyed for my own sake. Even though dinner isn't for another hour and a half, I know that I won't be able to play my best, and I'd still like to leave here a winner after being here all day. It's time to rack up.